Hello, everybody. Happy 2023. We will just give it about 30 seconds here for everybody to finish logging in, and I'll see if there's any stragglers. And there are a couple, but hopefully you'll be able to get your drams poured here. If you're going off the email invite I sent out hastily this afternoon, you should notice that there was a PDF file in there that does have the lineup. If you haven't poured yours yet, the order is with number one, a little bit of a deja vu bottling for some of us potentially, called Orange Creamsicle Crush. Second will be a Commune of Delights. Third is Hellenistic Alchemy. The fourth is French Oak Roller Coaster. Fifth is The Proof is in the Pudding. Six is Back of the Seasoning Cupboard, and then we will finish up with Cocktail of Ash and Brine, which sounds like some sort of Game of Thrones spinoff to me.
You must be so excited about that one.
Yes. Don't spoil it.
Nope.
So that's the lineup. So welcome to our first Outturn for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society of 2023, the January 2023 Outturn. I am running solo. My name is Evan on the Kensington Wine Market side, but luckily I have Rob and Kelly from the Scotch Malt Whisky Society to help prop this rough-edged engine that we have up. And hopefully we'll have a great tasting here. It's a really cool lineup, and I'm really excited to go through it. A couple of numbers that we potentially haven't seen in a while that I think are going to get people excited, and some really cool bottlings. I've only run through it once myself, but there's a couple that I'm excited to revisit. Before we get into anything, Kelly and Rob, is there anything you want to add before we get going?
Happy New Year.
Yeah, ditto.
Sounds good. Yeah, Happy New Year for sure.
I'm kind of blown away that it's 2023 already. I feel like we just had 2022. Like
We did.
the beginning of it.
We did. It was only 5 days ago.
Exactly.
2020 could have been 5 days ago at this point. It's really hard to tell.
But yeah, kind of a big year for the society. This is the society's 40th anniversary. Hard to believe. So hopefully we'll see some cool things coming this year.
Yeah, maybe there's something we can in the lineup where we can touch on the 40th year in this. Not a 40-year-old dram, don't get your hopes up, but maybe something else that'll touch on the history of the society. We'll see. So hopefully everybody has their drams poured. If this is your first, and I see a lot of returning names, but if this is your first Scotch Malt Whisky Society tasting, or if you need a refresher, it's a good idea if you can, and you have the glasses to pour all the drams, to have them in front of you in 7 different glasses, not all in one glass. Try and nose and taste it. Leave a bit in your glass as we're going along, just because we do a lightning round to start going through them, just seeing what we think, and then we do a second round where we go through them as a group again. And Rob, Kelly, and I will reveal the missing information in that PDF file for the Outturn itself. Including the cask number, the distillery comes from, the region, and the age of the whiskey itself, as well as how much that bottle is going to cost you. This is our first tasting for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society for the January Outturn at Kensington Wine Market, so all these bottles are available, and we have them live on the website for the end. Remind me, and I'll give links to each one as we go along here. So let's jump in with whiskey number one. Whiskey number one is Orange Creamsicle Crush.
I mean, I'll be from here because some of us know this one already, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I've tried it once or twice, and I'm excited to try it again at this point. This is from. Sorry, Kelly.
You're completely off topic. I'm having a hard time concentrating because Chris got his haircut, and boy, he ever gets.
Yeah.
Oof. All right, carry on.
That's a cheap trick. I've done that in the past too. Is I resolve to lose weight, and I get a haircut right away just to get it all over with for a New Year's resolution. Always smart. Yeah. So Orange Creamsicle Crush is from a first fill ex-bourbon barrel. Date is the 9th of May. Scant Outturn of 63 bottles. I wonder why that could be. And it is 51.3% alcohol.
Oh.
Such,
Holy smoke.
such a glorious nose.
Glorious, glorious whiskey.
So this is, as I said, I've tried this once or twice by now, and this one, there's some where I kind of would contest what the Scotch Malt Whisky Society calls the bottle, but I think they just nailed the title on this one.
Yep.
They did
Oh,
absolutely. Yeah, orange creamsicles from my childhood. I can just picture biting into it and the orange outer crust cracking and the vanilla ice cream inside, and
just the burst of flavor. Yep.
The sweetness, because it's just so sweet on the nose. And this, I got unlike last time we tried it, Evan, this time I'm really picking up the marzipan.
Oh yeah, good call.
Reference in the tasting note, but it didn't seem as pronounced to me last time, but yeah. Ooh,
Yeah, along with the Marzipan Society also mentions fresh macarons, juicy and fruity wine gums, jelly babies, and strawberry sweets. I did my own tasting notes for this that I'll maybe reference later, but I think I went from ice cream to sherbet to just about every version of frozen treat that I could get my hands on in different citrus forms, because it's all in there. It's got this great waxiness along with everything else as well. This is just one heck of a dram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Are we okay to reveal where we know this from recently?
Yeah, we'll do it a second time around, just in case. I think there's a lot of people that are going to be well aware of where this one was perhaps seen before, maybe in a tasting or something like that. But
Okay.
We'll keep it under our hats for now, and then just make it part of the surprise. But 63 bottles of this one means there's probably not a lot to go around, considering this is going between 5 different society stores in Canada now.
4 for now. The 5th store is not doing outturns every month, so this is not one.
Okay. Good to know. And for those of you that are traveling, there is a 5th society store that's just kind of joined the group, and it is in Kelowna.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ARC Liquor, ARC. We just kicked things off with them in November with an event out there. The goal, of course, is just to build the membership base so that we can inundate them with all the monthly bottles and have the membership base to support that. So we've done we did a big event in November out there. We'll be back in a couple of weeks after Victoria Whiskey Festival. We'll head out and do another event. And then we've scheduled them for the first official outturn in April. And then we'll kind of thinking as we'll do them quarterly, build membership, and then gradually maybe it's every other month until we get them to every month. But
It'll be a while.
It'll be a while, but they do and will continue to have a smattering of society bottles on the shelf for people in that part of BC. So it's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great place to get the society into, just because we all know that there's a lot of members in the Okanagan that are a little bit underserved, as is pretty much everybody outside of the Lower Mainland when it comes to alcohol in British Columbia. Just because even for non-society bottles, the alcohol doesn't really travel well outside of the metropolitan areas. But it's cool to see another group of Scotch Malt Whisky Society lovers get access to more bottles.
Exactly.
So
as we former British Columbians used to say, everything outside of Vancouver is beyond hope.
Ooh. Ooh.
I like that one. As a former BCer, that's a new one on me.
Oh no!
I was always beyond hope though, because I'm from Creston, so you can't get much further from hope than that.
Well, try Prince George.
Have you put water in this?
No, I haven't. I should actually join you on that.
Oh, I haven't done it yet. I'm vacillating about whether I want to. So why don't you take one for the team?
Sure, I'm happy to.
Yeah.
The waxiness and the marzipan come out even more on the nose. The citrus is still there, really creamy in style.
I would think this would take water fairly well. Yeah. Okay, well, let's leave
Yeah.
a little bit. Stop sampling, Kelly.
That is it.
touch of spice on the palate comes through, but yeah, it's just a gorgeous dram. I don't think it needs water, but it takes water just fine. Okay, on to whiskey number 2, which is a Commune of Delights. This is a cask finish. Started its life in an ex-bourbon barrel. Was finished in a first fill Kostcha. Was that how you pronounced it? Wine barrique?
I don't know if it's cosecha or cosecha. It's a Spanish word. It means
Cosecha, pardon me. Yeah.
maybe.
So we can talk a little bit about that as well. This is from the 26th of February, 209 bottles from the Outturn, jumping up to 60.3% alcohol. So Kelly actually and Rob emailed headquarters just to get a bit more background on the wine barrique. And my understanding is it's essentially a dessert-like wine barrique, and was it Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon, from what I recall?
Yeah, so technically, and I'll read you exactly what they said to me. Cosecha, and I'm going to go with that's how you say it. If anybody knows better, please correct me. It's the Spanish word for harvest, and it's not strictly a type of wine. This particular cask came from a small winery in Spain, and they call a specific wine cosecha. And they said it's like a muscat or a Semillon dessert wine. So sweet dessert wine. It's just not a word I'd ever seen before, not being a wine guy. So, and then it looks like the website that's shown is at least references Jimenez or Ximenez, as in Pedro Jimenez. So that seems to be the region as well, potentially, that it's coming from. Potentially, yeah.
We'll take that as a working theory.
Yeah. So nose is slightly more muted versus the first one there. A little bit more floral as well right up front. And Muscat typically often, well, it tends to be a fruity grape, tends to have a lot of floral notes to it as well. Sometimes Semillon goes in that floral note, gets a little bit honeyed. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of honey sweetness, flowers, honey on this one. And that talks about it being mentholated, and that's there's no better way to put it. That very first sip, it just was almost rushing up and clearing out my sinuses. It had a real menthol thing going on.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the lack of cough medicine could be cured with this.
Put this on the shelf in the drugstore.
Yeah, exactly.
Who needs Tyler?
Right. This is it's kind of like it's a combination cough drop wise of Ricolas, the Ricola sort of like alpine flower sort of and botanicals lozenge, and then maybe just a slight bit of like a wine Vicks in there, or lemon Vicks as well. That botanical note, that's a good call. There is almost a kind of herbally botanical thing going on with this, that it's, you know, not nearly as, it's certainly floral, but not nearly as sweet as the first one.
I can see the wood resins fir cones reference. You know, there's a woodiness in there. It's quite nice. On the pineapple chunks and overripe smoothie, mango smoothie, sorry, like it is like the first round orange creamsicle crush is just bursting. Oh, Evan, we've lost you. Have we just lost you, or has everybody lost you?
Everybody lost Evan.
Yeah, we can't hear you anymore, Evan. All right, technical difficulties.
Okay.
There we go.
You guys hear me now?
Yep.
Must be an issue with my Bluetooth earphones, so I'll just take them out for now. So sorry, it's hopefully that wasn't me. Definitely is. So it's the fruit is really pronounced on this, but it's a little bit more zingy and floral. Like it's not just like mouth coating the way the orange creamsicle crush is.
I thought the same thing. The mouthfeel is very different. It doesn't have that weighty waxiness. It's, I don't want to call it thin because that's not fair either, but it's not quite as robust in the mouth as the first one.
Ooh.
But really interesting flavors. That's a really interesting dram, and I have to wonder, a fair bit of that influence maybe has come from that wine barrique. And we'll reveal all later in terms of the age and etc. But looking at my notes here, you referred to it as a finish, and in fact, it's much longer than that.
Oh, cool.
In that wine barrel for a good long time in relation to what a standard typical finish usually is. So
Yeah.
I think that's probably where a lot of these cool flavors are coming from.
Sounds good. But it's certainly alpine to me. Like maybe it's just thinking about Ricola as a lozenge and stuff, but there seems to be that sort of like alpine flower floral note coming through and through for me.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Wow.
No.
Takes the water on the nose really nicely, which shocks me. I wasn't expecting that with a wine cask finish.
Good for you. We haven't done the water thing yet. I'll just leave that up to you.
It's kind of going into a combination of like a Saint Germain elderflower liqueur with a little bit of Canton liqueur, which is a ginger liqueur.
Oh, interesting. Ginger.
I think we're going to take on the role of Andrew as it relates to water in this event.
Yeah.
I think
Okay. Well, you're gonna have to pull your cell phones out and be on there half the time and during the tasting in order for that to work.
Talk a lot more.
yeah, we'll do the water the next round.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised with water. I think the palate doesn't get enhanced as much, but the nose works really nicely with water personally.
Yep. I'm super excited to reveal what this one is because I think people are going to be shocked.
Yeah, not necessarily what you would expect from this distillery, that's for sure.
Yep.
Who knew Ardbeg could make a whiskey like this?
It's amazing. Can't believe you gave it away.
Okay, on to number 3. Number 3 is Hellenistic Alchemy. Another cask finish. This started its life in an ex-bourbon hogshead. Final cask was a first fill Oloroso hogshead. So we should be, and you can kind of see it on the color, going into some sherry territory here. 8th of June for the date. 297 bottles for the Outturn, 56.5% alcohol.
I was surprised by where you put this in the lineup, so I'm keen to get through the next 3 or so to see if it all kind of makes sense.
So am I, because I honestly can barely remember putting this lineup together. So, and that has nothing to do with inebriation. It was just coming off a busy time of year.
Mm-hmm.
And going into a busy time of year.
Yep. So Society mentions treacle tart, chocolate soil, which is a cool combo.
Yeah.
It does have a little bit of an earthy note in there. I would say more going into like if you mashed a key lime pie with a Black Forest cake.
Oh, that's a mashup.
Yep. And they also mentioned Greek natural yogurt and marmalade. And that marmalade note is definitely there for me as well.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Dijon mustard, I'm not so sure, but that's a savory dram without, I wouldn't call it a sherry bomb.
No, definitely not. Like it's got notes of the sherry and you're getting those spices. It's not really going into dried fruit territory for me.
Yeah.
No, but it is definitely savory. There's a light meatiness to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, after tasting it and then going back into the nose, it does get a little bit of a pizza sauce note for me, or tomato soup can. It's gone all Andy Warhol.
Pizza sauce. Great. Oh, our suggestion, hey?
Yeah, pizza sauce and just a touch of balsamic vinegar in there too.
Yep. It's all that savoriness, not that kind of, as you say, sometimes dry, nutty over the top shariness. There's none of that going on.
So the society mentions also Greek lamb stew, Greek sweet liqueur seasoned with mastic, a resin with a slightly cedar-like flavor, aptly called mastica. We've actually sold that, and I've tasted it at the shop in the past, and it's they sometimes use that resin actually in a style of wine in Greece called Retsina or Retsina as well. But mastica does have this sort of refreshing pine sappy note to it, where if it's sweet enough, and it typically is, it's actually refreshing. Whereas if it wasn't, it'd just be hyper bitter. But it's a cool note, and it does have a little bit of that on the finish for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared to do this on this style, but I'm going to add a bit of water just for kicks.
He lives on the edge, that one.
He does. Poppy seed strudel thing to it. Oh, interesting note, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Balsamic note from society is on point. Yep.
I didn't even realize. Did they say balsamic?
I think so, or it came up in conversation just now somewhere.
Yeah, we did. I didn't notice it in the notes, but venison carpaccio is cool. A cool note as well.
Good name, Hellenistic alchemy, with all the Greek references and
Well, it's just the meatiness.
yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it's a cool whiskey. It's it doesn't go into, like, if you were expecting big sherry territory on this,
No.
it doesn't veer in that direction. It does have the meatiness. It's definitely a little bit lighter on the palate than I expected. It does have some nice spice and savory notes to it, but it's not this big sherry bomb by any means.
Right.
Okay, on to the French Oak roller coaster for number 4. So this started its life in an ex-bourbon hogshead, was finished in a refill toasted barrique. 28th of October for the Outturn, 286 bottles in the Outturn, which is decently hefty. 60.6% alcohol.
It's a very busy tasting note. There's
Yeah.
a lot going on here. I'm keen to try it.
Well, I probably because I read it, but the balsamic onions does make sense. I do get the aniseed going into some licorice notes in there, along with the lemon cough drops as well.
Some great color on it too. Posh.
Jen mentions this is the Giving Spirit bottle.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh man, that is a really neat palette.
It's black currants. I get the black currants on the palate, definitely.
Well, and it's got this like there are certain drams that we've had from the society and I've had from elsewhere too, where it's got this effervescence to it, where it's tingly because of that.
Yep.
This isn't tingly because of the bubbliness. It's got this tingle that sort of starts after the finish on the tongue for me. That reminds me more of going into like a cinnamon note in a cool manner. Kind of reminds me of we've got a single cask from Tomatin that was I think entirely aged in a charred refill cask. That was a break. Kevin K says powdered French onion soup mix. I can totally see that.
I am absolutely feeling the 60% on this, unlike the earlier one that was just
Really?
at 60. This is, yep, it just got my lips tingling and burning a bit, and
It's that combo of alcohol and spice just kind of blend together on this. I like that sort of like warming tingle on the finish from the spice notes.
yeah, super tingly. That's exactly what's going on.
Evan, you've got someone in the waiting room.
Oh, thank you. And if you guys see that, I think you can admit them as well, but
Yeah, so too. But
looks like Shannon's been cloned and she's coming in again.
in case you don't want them, I just feel I'll leave it to you.
You can be the bouncer.
So Shannon, number 2, if you are just joining us, we are just on whiskey number 4 in our first go round, which is French Oak Roller Coaster. If you add a bit of water to this, it gets into puffed wheat plus Melba toast notes on those Melba crackers on the nose.
When's the last time I had Melba toast? Good heavens. I've just switched screens here because I want to pull up the bottle note. So you guys that have society bottles at home, you know that there's the full tasting note and then there's the abridged version on the bottle label. So in this case, and sometimes we've bought bottles based entirely on the bottle note on the label because they sometimes really diverge from the full tasting note and they're just wacky enough that we go, God, we got to buy that bottle without even trying it. So the bottle note on this one is a mad and enjoyably hallucinatory tiptoe through wine cellars, spice cupboards, jam conventions, and a mushroom thicket. Embrace the weirdness.
Cool.
So I'm here for that all day long.
Have you guys ever had Big Red chewing gum? They used to have commercials in the, I think, late 90s, early 2000s. And the palate is like you just popped one of those into your mouth where it's got that tingle of cinnamon right there.
Yeah.
But I think the notes on the bottle are correct. Like it is kind of like you're chewing that while walking through a wine cellar. That is like a bit sort of dunnagey at the same time, a little bit damp.
Yeah, it's the cask sitting there.
I'm really glad that's our charity bottle because I think that's going to do well. And that's a really crazy, delicious whiskey.
It is. Wow.
4 for 4.
Yeah.
That's the last time we did that. We got more than 1 or 2 good ones in here.
Bravo.
That is a cool one.
Yep.
Okay, on to number 5. The proof is in the pudding. Another cask finish. This one started its life in an ex-bourbon hogshead. Final cask was a first fill Oloroso hogshead. 2nd of March for the date. Outturn of 255 bottles, 55.8% alcohol. It'll be interesting to kind of compare this with the Hellenistic alchemy that we had 2 drams back.
Yep. This has a lot more color on it. And now we're coming back to my comment earlier about the order that you place them in. And the fact that this one came in closer to the end, I thought, oh, that's really interesting. I can't wait to try it.
Yeah, I can't remember what the distillery numbers are, and I don't have those in front of me now, but this one seems a little bit more lush off the nose. More into like apple cider territory than sherry territory right now for me.
I'm getting red fruits like plums, and there's a depth and a richness to it.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, a little bit of blackberry jam in there. Even a touch of blueberry yogurt.
Yeah, it's quite different than the other Oloroso finish. It's for me, it doesn't have that savory meatiness going on. We're back to more traditional sherry notes.
Yeah. So for those of you that are missing the World Junior Championship for this, JP just said Canada won in OT. So very cool.
OT. Good for them. How exciting. Yeah. Thanks, John.
Hate for Slovakia to have something else up on us beyond having Prague. Or Czechia, I think they're called now.
Sticky toffee pudding, caramel sauce and ice cream, hot buttered rum bread pudding, and a hot chocolate Catalana cream.
Yeah. What is a Clutie dumpling?
Oh man. I'm gonna probably have to Google that. One of those goofy classic Scottish desserts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's where you mix like a bit of George Clooney with Doug Flutie, the former quarterback, and make a dumpling.
I think it's got something to do with heavy cream or something.
Well, every dessert in Scotland does, I think.
Oh, fair point.
Eaten mess, well, that's more English, and Cranachan, Clootie dumpling. Whoops. Okay, that has to do with clothing. So what is a Clootie dumpling? A Clootie dumpling is a Scottish dessert traditionally made of dried fruit, spices, oatmeal or breadcrumbs, flour, and beef suet.
Okay.
Cool.
Boiled in a cloth called a cloot, hence the name.
Okay.
So, you know, dessert with beef suet.
Yep, as one does.
Oh, Scotland.
There's something about this that reminds me, and this is a weird one, but it reminds me of bourbon from Buffalo Trace Distillery. Buffalo Trace always gets this combination of like big cherry notes, but also like a grape note and grape juice note on the palate for me and on the nose. And I'm really getting that right up front on this one. Minus the corn. That is a fun dram.
Yeah, it is. And for me, significantly different from the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot more spiciness versus savoriness.
Yep.
Yeah, and even going into maybe not a ton of dried fruit territory, but more into red fruit territory and purple fruit territory for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just trying it with a bit of water just for kicks. A little bit more sawdust and glue on the nose with
Oh, that's interesting.
water. A little bit more of that blackberry jam note coming through as well, or
I think I like the mouthfeel on this one better than the other one as well. It's a little creamier or a little more mouth coating.
yeah, it's crazy how so water actually makes it spicier for me
Okay.
in a cool manner. Different spice note versus the last one from the French oak though, where like you get a bit of the tingle, but you get a bit more of the heat on this one as well for me. Not in a bad way though. I think that is a pretty cool dram. Okay, on to peated territory with whiskey number 6, which is back of the seasoning cupboard. So this is from a second fill ex-bourbon barrel, no cask finish or secondary cask on this one. 27th of October for the Outturn, 208 bottles and 59.9% alcohol.
Barely peated on the nose. That's really a soft, quiet nose.
This is like you just are setting a slightly still green hay bale aflame on the nose for me.
Well, if it's still slightly green, would it more smolder than
Yeah,
flame? Smolder ale?
I think it's a campfire on a beach and the campfire's gone out and it's the next morning kind of thing. And it's sort of a petrichor beach.
yeah, petrichor for sure. I can see.
Sort of that damp campfire ash thing.
Really nice,
But subtle.
really nice malt notes in there as well. Almost like a salty pancake on the nose.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, salt doesn't typically have a smell, and yet when I stick my nose in, I just want to say it's a salty whiskey.
Well, and typically, and not to give anything away, but this distillery evokes bacon in a great manner on a lot of their drams, and it's just not quite getting there for me right now.
Yeah.
No, but I mean the palate is leather and yeah.
The palate actually has a bit more of a hard edge than I was expecting. I was expecting to be more malt driven, but there's a touch of minerality to this one that sort of tightens everything up in a cool manner.
And it took a second for that to happen for me.
Yeah.
had a sip, it sat there on my tongue for a minute, I swallowed it, and I thought, well, kind of couldn't really decide what was going on, and then pow, it sort of hit. The palate, the nose belies the palate. You wouldn't expect to get that palate from the nose for me.
Yeah.
Which is I love when that happens, that disconnect, it's like a surprise.
Yeah.
Chris already has a guess out on this one. Will Christie's saying old ship timbers. I can see that. It's almost like you made the ship timbers out of railroad ties, where they were just like soaked in creosote.
Yeah.
And other chemicals that are probably extremely harmful to us, but smell great anyways. And then used them to make a ship.
All those
They're
carcinogens.
waterlogged now. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is why I spent a day painting old timbers with creosote back in the day. with no safety protection or anything else.
No mask. Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
It was you closed room, no ventilation. Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Pasta water. Yeah.
Um,
That saltiness is there for me.
Yeah.
there's an ashy. It's like breathing in a bit of campfire smoke and getting it in your mouth, and almost a bit of chewiness about it. And
Added a bit of water for kicks. It's a little bit fruitier, a little bit more just more malt without the maltiness coming through on the nose.
Okay.
Goes from pancakes to cereal, I guess is the best way to put it.
Still a really muted nose. But yeah,
Mhm.
boy, lightly peated, I think is, that's so subjective, but I think that's probably the appropriate profile for this, because it's definitely there, but it's by no means in your face.
Yeah. Water kind of lengthens the time it takes before everything tightens up on the palate for me.
Okay. Cool.
Very cool dram. Okay, last but not least, we have Cocktail of Ash and Brine, which is from a refill expert, Merrill, 21st of February, 306 bottles from the Outturn, 58.3% alcohol. And I was saying to Robin Kelly, Cocktail of Ash and Brine sounds like one of the Game of Thrones spin-offs to me, like the name of something.
set in a bar.
Yeah.
So light. And there's almost, maybe it's the background in my house here, but there's a greenish tinge.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I see where you're going on that. It does have that hue to it for sure. And that is
Speaking of bacon.
yeah, bacon, but also like if you've ever made Brussels sprouts with bacon and just like braised everything in a frying pan, I guess, or even cooking down either spinach or kale and adding a bit of bacon to it just for grease and fat.
There we go. There's the much bigger peat.
Yeah.
Oh,
Even kale chips on the nose for me right now.
and hot for me. What are we at? 58. Not like the other one, but there's heat in the finish going down for me as well that I didn't get on many of the others.
Yeah, much more of a peaty coastal build on the palate on the finish here.
Smoked salmon.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yep.
This is like as the last one kind of like evoked campfire and everything. This one you taste it and then you take a breath in and you're right on the coast.
Yeah. The earlier one was the morning after with, I think, the smoldering ashes lingering. This is, you're sitting next to it the night of and it's blowing in your face.
Man, you're right. I put these in the wrong order. The morning after always comes out after the night before.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of leather and burlap sack in there as well on the nose on this one.
And some sweetness.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not all peat all the time. It's balanced with some other flavors, and nothing overwhelms anything else. It's a really nice, solid, everyday peated whiskey.
So Chris says, and I totally agree, if you have Brussels sprouts without bacon, you're damaged. Brussels, a lot of stuff that is green and leafy or green and tightly wound like Brussels sprouts. They're essentially just carriers for bacon and bacon when it comes down to it. So I totally agree with you. Will says some vegetal notes, tending to barnyard, definite barnyard notes on this, even getting into a little bit of like, you just took the saddle off the horse, and the combination of the saddle and the sweat underneath is there.
Can't say I've ever.
Says bacon makes everything better. I totally agree. I don't think humanity has actually found anything that bacon doesn't work with or enhance beyond clogged arteries, I guess.
So here's the thing, you guys. I don't like bacon, and I know it's. And in fact, up until relatively recently, I wasn't a fan of most smoked foods.
Mhm.
Love the smoked whiskeys, but wasn't interested in smoked foods. I'm coming around on that, but I've never been a fan of bacon. It doesn't appeal to me at all.
Yeah, Kelly, I was just going to say the Bacon Anonymous meeting is just actually down another breakout room down the hall.
Bacon haters anonymous.
Yeah,
That's
but
right.
you're trying to, get off your addiction to bacon.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
And not if you never liked it in the first place.
Yeah, I know. I'm an outlier. What can I say?
Hi, my name is Evan. I haven't cured anything for 9 days now. Hi, Evan.
Yeah, that's a solid peated whiskey.
That's a lovely.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
I'm really digging this lineup.
I don't know if I could have nailed this distillery, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, it's got some notes to it, but I really like it. But if I was going blind, it would have been hard to pick.
Okay, that's good to know. That's the whole point of the society. Exactly that. So good job done.
If you add a bit of water, it goes into like waxy bacon notes, like a Crayola crayon wrapped in bacon almost on the palate.
What color Crayola crayon?
Good
Color.
call.
Bacon color.
Yeah, I think you got one of the lime greens and then some sort of purple or violet in there mixed together. So Chris Walker says, other than number 4, this is a stellar lineup, and number 4 is not horrible. Huge praise there, Chris.
High praise.
Chris's better half completely disagrees with his take on number 4, which is good to hear.
Dissension among the ranks. I love it.
That's right.
I love it.
Yeah, very cool lineup so far for the first round. Any comments from you guys on the first round, or should we jump back to number 1?
I'm super keen to let people know what these are and talk about them, because a couple of them might be quite surprising. So
Yeah, let's
go for it.
Okay, so this is where I might be doing a little bit more in the background, just because I will try and get everybody the bottles as we go along. But let's go back and revisit whiskey number 1, which is Orange Creamsicle Crush.
even more creamsicle now.
Oh boy.
Oh man, yeah. Well, the marzipan and macarons.
Yeah. Oh,
It's if you dipped orange creamsicle into Earl Grey tea right now, if you've ever had, what is it, the cream of Earl Grey tea, it's got a lot of that to it.
Is that a soup?
It should be. I guess if you steep it long enough.
Okay. Yeah, you reduce it.
Boy, oh boy. Holding up so well in the glass with air and time. And
on Tyler, we've touched on it, but Tyler, I think, puts it tremendously well, where it's he says, love coming back to the numbers 1 slot after Pete, turns the nose up to 11 if you've missed anything first time around. I only disagree with you, Tyler, because I think this nose was already at 11. This is going right up to 12 at this point.
Okay. Do your big reveal.
Mhm. Okay, so let's, I'll just share my screen here for the first one. So everybody can get all the deets. So this is Scotch Malt Whisky Society 63.99. It is 19 years old. What else can I tell you? From the 9th of May, 2002. And again, that 63 bottle Outturn, which we'll have to link those two together. The reason the Outturn was so low on this wasn't just because of the Angel share after 19 years. It's also because we are lucky enough to have 100 milliliter bottles of this one as well. This cask, I'm guessing, I believe was essentially entirely bottled for Canada.
Yes, correct.
That was because of it was the 25th dram in the Kensington Wine Market 2022 whiskey calendar that we put out in November. We had it for our 25th day, which if you were following along was Christmas Day, and boy, was this one heck of a Christmas dram. This is I was writing the blog post for this one, and all of the blog posts for the calendar, and that's my 4th year running, I think, doing all the blog posts on it. And it's my first year in doing it where I had my #1 pick since day 4, and then this one came along and just absolutely crushed it. I'm still a big fan of whiskey #1 or #4 in the calendar because it's a Teaninnic and it's a really good value Teaninnic.
That boutique one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the boutique one was just tremendous, but this is just absolutely gorgeous. I remember seeing the bottle number and hearing we were getting a Glen Talkers in the society, and it was from the society in the calendar, and it was 19 years old, and it was like, ooh, this is going to be interesting. And then I saw the name, I was like, oh, I can't wait to try this. And it went above and beyond my high expectations, and just climbed past them easily. I can't believe how good this one is.
So it pains me to say it, but we have to give Andrew credit, because when we were working with him last year this time on the calendar, because we have to start, a year in advance almost, we went to him and we said, we've been doing this with you for 9 years. We've usually targeted sort of that 8 to 11-year-old age whiskey in order to keep the price relatively down, because we didn't want to skew the overall cost of the calendar. But we went to him and we said, could we do something with age on it? And is that going to really negatively impact the overall price? He said, no, I can make it work. So we went back to HQ and we said, time for the advent calendar. We want something with a bit of age on it. So they sent back 3 options. And I don't remember what the other 2 were at this point, but I forwarded all 3 onto Andrew and I said, which one? And he said, oh, let's go for the Glen Talkers. Nobody having tried it, or, we're just going off the age and the type of cask. I don't think it even had a full tasting note at that point. Yeah, so just a good choice, a great cask. And yeah, I've been surprised at the reaction to it, because we just kind of thought, okay, great, a 19-year-old Glen Talkers will have something with age. Great, that's and we moved on. And then your whiskey festival back in November, I was setting up the table and Sean, your beer guy, came over and he said, I'm so excited about your Advent contribution. Yeah. And I'd sort of forgotten at that point. I'm like, oh, what are we? He said, it's a 19-year-old Glen Talkers. I said, yeah. He said, oh no, I could hardly wait for it. It's going to be the best one. I'm like, what? I guess that was there was so many whiskeys every month, so often it just became another number in the bunch, right? Yeah. But everybody was quite excited about it, and boy, it measured up. It was really good.
Yeah, no, lovely.
Yeah, so we've had a few people ask if it was 700 or 750. I just double checked on Connect's website, and it is a 700 mil.
Yeah, we will slowly be transitioning to all 700 mils over time, because the rules in the States changed. We used to get 750s because that was the only bottle size that they could have in the States, or not the only, but they couldn't do 700s. So HQ thought it would just be easier to bottle everything for North America at the same size. So now that the States can move to 700, we're also moving to 700s.
I think the only country in the world that, or the only society branch in the world that doesn't do 700s now is South Africa.
Yeah.
Still on 750s.
Yeah, that could be. So yeah, there'll be a mixture of both sizes for a number of months to come, but eventually everything will just roll down to 700s.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So I've passed on the link in the chat. I will have to change it to 700 milliliters just to reflect that on our page, which I'll get to hopefully after this. But we do have 100 milliliter bottles of this available as well. And those are $33.99 for the 100 milliliter version.
Buy 7 and you've got a 700.
There we go. But yeah, fantastic dram. I was excited to have this one in the lineup, and I'm glad that it held up at number one, because I didn't want to have to put it in the middle of something, because I think it would have just destroyed everything around it if that was the case, or gotten lost, one or the other. But it is one heck of a number one dram in the lineup for sure. Okay, on to a commune of delights. So this one, when I first tried it, was a little bit more muted on the nose, but just about everything is, versus the orange creamsicle crush.
I'd love for people to take a guess at what they
Yeah.
think this might be. I mean, we can tell you it's Speyside. We can tell you it starts with a Glen, because you know that really nails it down.
It's another Glen Talkers, folks.
That would be awesome.
Really get balsamic on that now.
Yeah. With a little bit of still going into marmalade and a little bit of cherry pie in there as well.
And it's absolutely miles away from this distillery's house style, which is what's so fun about it.
So I'll share the screen and we'll talk. We'll give out the info for all this, and then we'll talk about what this is afterwards too, because it's worth kind of combining the two sides of things. So this is Scotch Malt Whisky Society 1.262, the 262nd cask bottled by the SMWS from the first distillery they ever bottled, going on 40 years ago, and that was Glenfarclas Distillery. This is $154.99. It's an 8-year-old from Glenfarclas from the 26th of February 2013, and as Kelly mentioned, this is absolutely not what you would typically expect from a Glenfarclas.
No.
Yeah. And when you mentioned earlier, we were talking about the use of the word finish. It was finished in a wine barrique. It spent 3 years in a wine barrique. It was in that first barrel for only five, and then 3 years in that wine barrique. So that's a great amount of time to pick up all of those really interesting flavors from that kooky.
It's so cool. Like, we've had some really interesting, like if you go back years and years, number ones from the SMWS, and a lot of the time, or most of the time, the number ones were typically refill or ex-bourbon.
Yeah.
Which if you've ever had, like, to me, the two distilleries that you, or three, if you want to go that far, distillery wise, where a lot of their style is so wound up in the casks that they're put in. Glenfarclas is definitely at near the top there. Aberlour is another one that famously is so wrapped up in the sherry casks that they're put in. And when you see or have a naked Aberlour, it can be vastly different in style. And then it doesn't happen as often that you see them, but Macallan would be up there as well.
What about Glendronach?
Yeah, Glendronach actually, and there have been some Society Glendronachs that are case in point on that. That's a really good call as well. But it is so fun to sort of visit these distilleries in different styles than are typical. I've been lucky enough to have a lot of Glenfarclas over the years, just because they've been so good to Alberta as a distillery and as a company, but also because we've had some great independent bottlings that from the Society, which is probably the one place we can get a Glenfarclas independent bottling where we actually can know for sure that it's from Glenfarclas.
That's right.
Just because they tend to be highly litigious when it comes to other people using their name. But it is so much fun. And the only cask that I can think of for an official Glenfarclas bottling coming close to this was I feel like it was a 1966 that was matured entirely in Fino sherry. Which was an odd one, but a fun one.
Yeah.
But the combination of like light fruit and floral notes on this one is just it's really cool.
Yeah. I feel like it was Kurt who early on, I can't give him credit for coining or coming up with the term, but it was one of our tastings in the store years and years ago. And we had one of these bourbon barrel Glenfarclas, and Kurt called it a naked Glenfarclas.
Yeah.
Because in the house style is they're, sort of masked in the sherry.
Absolutely.
And this was, he's called it a naked Glenfarclas. And I thought that's exactly right. That's a great description.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's so much fun when you get the sort of and it's actually it's kind of a fun throwback to what we were talking about with the 40 years of the SMWS, with this being the first distillery that was ever bottled. But this kind of gets to the core of what the Scotch Malt Whisky Society is about as well, where they don't really care if Glenfarclas does everything in sherry. They're just looking for good whiskey and interesting whiskey, and that's why something like this is bottled and celebrated by the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. It's a cool fact that it's from Glenfarclas, but that doesn't make it a good whiskey. What makes it a good whiskey is whether you like it or not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the extra maturation on this one is even cooler. I mean, it's just such an obscure cask to spend 3 years in. And it worked. It's great. It's just so many oddball things about this that make it so much fun.
Yeah, it's a fun one. Did you guys end up adding water to this just for kicks or no?
We don't really have enough left to add water.
sharing a wee dram. It's
That's totally fair. I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go on to number 3, the sort of savory end of the sherry with Hellenistic Alchemy.
Greek in a glass.
Any changes on this one over time?
It's still pretty meaty and savory to me, but I'm getting some nuttiness that wasn't there before.
Yeah, this is one of those never in a million years would I've guessed where this came from, drams, but it's also because of the distillery it comes from that I say that.
Mm-hmm. And that marmalade note is quite prominent for me on the nose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it still has a little bit of that, even on the nose, if you're looking for it, a little bit of that sort of sweet mastic liqueur note, where it's this hyper sweetened pine sap note to it.
I feel like I need to try mastic now at some point, but yeah, the resin pine sappy, that's
There's
definitely
sort of that piney, juniper-y whatever note.
Yep.
In there. Yeah.
That's so curious for a Oloroso hogshead.
I gotta say, after being in the glass, and maybe it's just because my palate's coated with everything else at this point, but the savoriness isn't really jumping to the fore for me. It's got some fruit, it's got some spice. It's a little bit more syrupy and rich versus the last 2 drams on the palate in a nice manner, but
Agreed. The nose is still
really
quite savory for me and herbal and still quite thick, that the nose, but it didn't come through that way in the palate on the second. It's mellowed out a bit and become a little more classic sherry-ish.
Yeah,
which it wasn't the first time.
The society notes I'll mention mostly like on the red meat side of things, but I'm gonna throw in poultry seasoning at this point where it's got a little bit of sage and thyme in there.
Wet cedar, Wilson, and a lovely poppy seed note. Yeah, that's cool too.
Okay, let's I'll share my screen for the reveal here. So this one isn't a Glen, it's a Ben. This is Scotch Malt Whisky Society cask 36.187, 164.99. It's a 12-year-old from Speyside, 8th of June 2009, and distillery number 36, if I remember correctly, is Ben Rinnes.
Correct.
So Ben Rinnes as a distillery is, even though we have our own single cask of it, and we featured it in our whiskey calendar as well, from a single cask that we have from Old Malt Cask. It's not a distillery where I feel like I've had enough of it personally to really sort of like grasp what its signature style is. I've got bits and pieces that sort of like remind me of it when I say from dram to dram, but this one doesn't have sort of one of the key notes that I typically get in Ben Rennes, which is this like sort of almost into like a custard or a whipped egg note that I get on the palate, where it's slightly creamy and round without going into full on creaminess.
Interesting. I wonder if that's just the result of being in that sherry cask,
Yeah, it could be.
overtaking any kind of sort of house style.
Yeah. But it's a fun one. Like this is I'm not going to say it's the antithesis of a sherry cask, but it's not what one would expect when you see when you're expecting a sherry cask finish.
Yeah, again, I mean, when I'm putting these booklets together, and the fact that you can now, get these, order these in early and taste them and set the lineup is great, because as you know, for years I was just doing it on tasting notes, and often these deep, rich and dried fruit ones, dirtifs we call them, would go much later in the lineup, just kind of by default of being that flavor profile. And then clearly this can sit much earlier in the lineup than where I would have put it without the benefit of having tasted it. So it's yeah, it's cool how the sort of ebbs and flows of the flavors, and they just don't quite, you read the tasting note and you think in your head, oh, that's going to be such and such, and then that's
yeah, it's got to be. They've mentioned lamb and beef. It's got to be like near the end of the lineup. It's going to be big and savory, right?
Yeah. So yeah, super fun. I love the surprises of it all.
Jen has an impossible ask there, so I think it's probably just best ignored.
Okay. We can probably comply with that.
Yeah.
Jen, just to make it easier, maybe you can buy 3 of the whiskeys and Chris can buy the other 4, and then you're saving a little bit, right? That's how that works.
I'm pretty sure we have 7 shitty ones for February.
Well,
That's
no,
right.
I think we kept it to 1 good one for February.
Okay, 6. So yeah,
Yeah.
you'll be fine.
Yeah, the other 6 are.
Yeah, and February is like
At least
February is a whole like 2 or 3 paychecks away. Like,
Oh yeah,
you don't have to worry about that.
you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, on to French Oak Roller Coaster.
Great name.
Yeah, it is a great name.
It's exactly like a roller coaster. It's just all over the place.
Is there still Disneyland Paris?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's still around.
See, the heat for me is really on this. I'm getting the 60% on the nose. It's tingly. It's
Yeah, I find it's more spicy than hot.
yeah, okay, that's fair. But my nose reacts to this more than any of the others so far.
All right.
Yeah, that weird combination now of on the nose, it's a combination of Irish cream plus that elderflower liqueur plus the ginger liqueur.
The palate's quite gingery now for me. And that could be a holdover from Christmas and all the, gingerbread cookies.
No, I get it too.
Yeah.
Mm.
The black currant that was really prominent before, I think, has softened a bit. It's not quite as.
Yeah, I still get a bit on the nose.
I love the posh strawberry jam, and not the cheap stuff. It's the posh strawberry jam.
Yeah, it's like you're like spooning the froth off of an eggnog latte that's been overly seasoned with nutmeg.
Why would you spoon the froth off?
I don't know. Maybe that you just didn't like the nutmeg. I'm not sure. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. I like my coffee where the spoon stands up. Okay.
Wine gums.
Mm-hmm.
Very wine gummy.
So this one, I'll share my screen again, but I honestly have completely forgotten what distillery this is. So Scotch Malt Whisky Society 100.35 This is 149.99. 28th of October 2010, and 7 years spent in ex-bourbon before being moved to a refill toasted barrique. So for 3 or 4 years, give or take, in that secondary cask again.
And this would be a Strathmill.
Strathmill, thank you.
Strathmill.
Another distillery for me that I just haven't kind of figured out what their signature style is.
Nope.
You don't.
I could
see
probably
them
count
on-
on, count on one hand the number of Strathmills we've had.
Yeah.
It's
And they've
one of those-
probably society ones.
It's one of those odd distilleries too, where I probably had more 20-plus-year-old Strathmill than I've had under 20-year-old Strathmill, because it seems like every single independent bottling you get is sort of in the 22 to 26-year-old range.
Well, then we're happy we could accommodate you with an 11-year-old.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, this is definitely the weirdest one of the lineup, but for me, I mean, I gravitate to weird whiskeys, and it's I love it. I think it's just kind of a, embrace the madness, or whatever the bottle note said. I think it's really well named, because there's a lot going on there. It's kind of all over the place, and I love it.
Yeah, it is a very much a roller coaster ride, and I was actually surprised at how, like with so many of these cast finishes, I almost worry where that water is just going to completely destroy it, and that it's going to become disjointed, and none of them really did that on the nose for me. And even this one on the palate didn't end up quite as good, but it's still I like the nose with water more than I did without.
But opposite for the palate,
Absolutely, yeah.
what it sounds like. Yeah, interesting.
Ovaltine.
Cool.
Oh, Ovaltine. When's the last time you had an Ovaltine?
I don't know the last time.
Yeah,
Like
we
Malt.
have
Okay.
we have it around because we have kids, and we'll knock them out in any way possible. But we've got the hot chocolate version of Ovaltine, which is almost cheating.
Wouldn't that just send them up on a sugar high?
Well, you kind of hope that there's going to be a big downer that's going to knock them out right after that, but
A big crash.
it's a roll of the dice
coaster,
sometimes.
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Barbecue sauce on burnt brisket ends. So, there's an implication that there's maybe a bit of smoke on this, but not from.
I could see like a touch of a char note, but even that it's more spice than wood driven.
Yeah.
Overall.
Refill toasted barrique. Yeah.
Bit of sandalwood.
Yeah.
Even the nose, like on the empty glass, is going into I think no, it was later on that I mentioned Melba toast, but that sort of like really crispy, sort of like slightly dark rye Melba toast, those cracker thins that you can get.
Well, between rye and Ovaltine, that's just kind of all sort of malted notes.
Absolutely.
Fundamentally, you're talking about at the end of the day. So, yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, and speaking of malted notes, Will Christie again says Whoppers the candy minus the chocolate, and that is like full on malt right in the middle there. So
Love Whoppers,
yep.
but they get stuck in my teeth. Yeah. And that's okay. So profits, 100% of the profits from this bottle sale goes to the Nature Conservancy of Canada this quarter. We thought we'll turn our attention to Mother Earth.
It seemed a good follow-on to the COP conference in Montreal recently. That apparently saved 30% of the world.
Oh,
But we'll see.
Sure.
only 70% more to go.
Yeah,
We can do this, Canada.
Screw the rest of the 70%, but it's only 30%.
Chris, if you're taking notes, you don't have to buy bottle number 4. Jen's got you covered.
Woo.
Okay, on to number 5. The proof is in the pudding.
So surprised by the amount of color on this.
Yeah, it's cool too, because it's at least to me, it's going in a little bit of a different direction than some other bottlings we've had from this distillery over the last little while.
Yep.
I want to see if that Buffalo Trace note is still there for me.
I haven't had enough Buffalo Trace to be able to pick that up. It's been years.
So it's a little bit more on the wine side of things on the nose right off the hop for me right now.
I'm getting sort of maple. I don't want to say maple syrup. I want to say like maple fudge, maple, or
Yeah,
those
I could
cookies,
yeah.
maple cookies. It's maple, but not like heavily syrupy mapley.
Yeah, it's kind of like maple mixed with honey graham cracker stylistically. The maple fudge I think works. It is going into those Banff confectionery.
Yeah, exactly. The whiskey fudge.
Chris says maple smoked meat. Yeah, I could see it as kind of going into that territory right now as well.
It's the maple smoked beef suet, including dumpling. God.
That's a really great palate though. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the nose doesn't have it as much, but the palate still does remind me of Buffalo Trace stylistically. So if you're going into like bourbon wise into like an E.H. Taylor or even into a Stag Junior, something that's at really high strength, you still get that big grapey note compared with a lot of cherry notes in there as well. And that's kind of what's reminding me of that in this. It's a really neat dram.
So are those bourbons that you're mentioning, are those rye high or wheat high?
So just about everything that Buffalo Trace does is corn high, where they do have some higher rye mash bills, but their typical mash bill is, I think it's around 75% corn, like it's very high corn.
Yeah, so that's the sweetness. It's not the spiciness of rye.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that over the last hour that has just settled down into something incredibly elegant.
It is
Beautiful.
lovely on the palate. Just
Yeah,
balanced.
that is I agree. That is a great palate.
God,
Nothing off on it.
that's beautiful. I was nice the first time around, but now it's really blossoming.
It's kind of like you have a blueberry pie, but it's got those bubble tea tapioca balls at the bottom. You got those bursts of flavor with it.
Some interesting cooking practices.
Yeah, whatever's in the cupboard, man.
Exactly.
With bacon on top.
Late
That's
night,
right, that's right.
late night pantry raid.
That's right. Okay, so this is, I think there's a little bit of the distillery signature note in here for me, but I don't know if I would have been able to blind it. I don't think I would have been able to, but this is, the proof is in the pudding. This is Scotch Malt Whisky Society 9.235, the 235th bottling from Glen Grant Distillery. A distillery that for a long time was my least favorite distillery that the Scotch Malt Whisky Society ever bottled. But boy, has that come around for me in the last couple of years. You get anything in the 15+ year old range into the mid-20s from this distillery, and it just tends to kill. And I do still get some of that distillery style from here, even with the cask finish. This is in the spicy and sweet side of things, which makes sense. 255 bottles from the Outturn from the 2nd of March 2004. 4 years in first fill Oloroso hogshead, and 17 years old total, and for 255. Just about everything that we get from Glen Grant from the society is going to be north of $200, but that is because they all tend to be a little bit older than the typical drams that we get from the society as well.
Yeah, I feel like we've had a string of sort of upper teenage Glen Grants over the last year or so, and you made a comment earlier about this being unlike them in terms of the flavor profiles. I think a lot of them previously have been that sort of juicy oak and vanilla or sweet, fruity, and mellow. This has been, this is definitely a much bigger, more robust expression than we've seen of these other teenagers that we've had in the past year or so.
Yep.
And the cool part, when I was just kind of doing my research on the numbers, for anybody out there that's been with us for a few years now, this is a sister cask to 9.124 Madeira Market Coffee Break, which we released in 2017. And it was a 12-year-old. So this is just that 12-year-old whiskey aged for a few more years
In a different cask.
in a different, in a different cask, but sister cask to something from 2017. So I just thought that was kind of
I think we're getting the sense that the society bought a bit of a package of
parcel, yeah.
liquid around that time. So there may be others in
Yeah,
future.
I think so. Yeah.
So Tyler says that this is the opposite of Naked Glen Farkless, is a clothed Glen Grant, which I totally agree. Chris is starting a GoFundMe's page as we speak.
A closed Grand Glen. That's great.
Yeah, it is kind of a clothed Glen Grant because typically, as Kelly was saying, if we're using sort of ex-bourbon or refill as sort of the naked reference, what we are used to getting from the society has been Naked Glen Grant, which I've really come around on personally. I guess I'm just getting much more into either pornography or fantastic European art when it comes with old age. But Naked Glen Grant is something that was so dunnage heavy for me for years and years, but I've kind of learned to embrace it over time.
So Rubenesque, like right.
Yeah. It doesn't smell or taste anything like a Reuben, so I don't know how that works.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
What a Renaissance man you are.
Draw the
Yeah.
Well, I remember those days.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, on to back of the seasoning cupboard. This is a fun one, and this one I referenced bacon earlier, and a little bit of the lack of. I'm interested to see if it's coming back around now.
Still that saltiness for me. I love the salty pasta water comment.
Yeah, it does have that sort of combination of salt and water and starch in a cool manner.
Right. Maybe a bit more robust on the palate this time around in terms of the peat. It's
Yeah,
kind of coming to the forefront, whereas before it was there, but quite mildly. But it's
even on the nose, like there's peat and pencil shavings is something that tends to go along with me on the nose with this distillery specifically sometimes.
okay, cool.
Especially when it goes on to the harder edge style and not the malt driven style from this distillery.
Mm-hmm. Are we still at a beach bonfire the next morning?
There's more, just a slight smoked meat on it.
To me, it's kind of gone into smoked meat with a little bit of like a peach jam or something like a compote on it. That's on the fleshy orchard fruit side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has gone a bit gamey
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to campfirey.
Yeah.
And you're right, but still with that sweetness, a fruit coulis drizzled over it or something. Yeah.
Chris says smoky salted caramel, which I think totally makes sense for this.
There we
one.
go. The sweetness, yeah.
Share my screen again.
Mm.
So I think I might have been able to pick this one out if I didn't know. This is a 66. So this is Scotch Malt Whisky Society 66.213, $152.99 for the price. This is a 10-year-old from the Highlands. The most famous, at least if you're a Scotch Malt Whisky Society member, Highland distillery that peats their whiskey would be Ardmore Distillery, which is one of the more or the lesser famous distilleries in the Beam Suntory portfolio. It is honestly in a lot of cases totally overlooked by that company, unfortunately, and just used for blending. But man, they do some fantastic peated whiskey. So 10 years old, $152.99 from Ardmore. And Ardmore always goes one of two ways for me. Either it goes into the really sweet and malty style, or it goes into the more minerality and shorter finish style. And this is more into the minerality style for me. I mentioned the granite, the graphite and the pencil shavings, and it does have a little bit of that, but it's not entirely on that end of things. It does kind of veer a little bit more into the malt driven style with going into the big bacon and breakfast notes. And also, as Chris says, a little bit brinier than your typical. Will said, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, which is always interesting to me, these, landlocked distilleries that do peated whiskey, and still you get that kind of coastal briny seawater note to it. So
it's interesting there. He's not on the he's not on the tasting tonight, but there's one Scotch Malt Whiskey Society member where if there's an Ardmore, he's pretty much assured to purchase it. So I'm going to have to be texting him after this.
I ran into him at spin class last week, and the first words out of his mouth, I actually took the bike right next to him, and he pointed to my water bottle and he said, "Is that water in your bottle?" Imagine asking that. Fair play.
Yeah.
Yes, it was water.
He knows you.
He was just trying to blow your cover, Kelly, is what it comes down to. Yeah.
So it was actually really funny that he was in spin, because I don't know if you know, he's a huge mountain biker, and that was the week before Christmas when it was -1 million. And he posted a picture on Instagram the day before he'd been out fat tire riding in Canmore, and he was just frozen solid. And he had his whole face was covered, and he had sort of the icicles hanging off his chin. And anyway, I thought, God, he's hardcore. So there he was in spin class the next day, and I said, "It finally got too cold for you." And he said, "Yeah," had to come inside. So why wouldn't you put whiskey in your water bottle at that stage?
Absolutely.
So this Ardmore, for anybody who keeps track, fun factoid, a sister cask to a perfect finish to a perfect day, 66.163, which was released in September of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I love finding sister casks.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a cool one.
Yep.
Yeah, the empty glass goes a little bit more into like musky and mushroom notes for me in a cool manner, like a really good mushroom broth.
Cool. Interesting.
Okay, and last but not least, on our journey through the January Outturn is the Game of Thrones bottling, which is the Cocktail of Ash and Brine.
And you know why I asked if you were excited about this one.
I am well aware.
Yes.
I've tried to keep my poker face on, but it's really hard.
For anybody who knows Evan well enough, that comment should tip your hand as to what this is.
Oof. And it's if I couldn't pick it out blind before, which I'd mentioned, it's smacking me over the face with it now.
Oh,
It is going much more into the territory that I would say this distillery is known for, and vilified for if you're on the wrong side of the lead shag war, in my opinion.
oh, that's another one. Just right up, clears the sinuses. It's gotten
Yeah.
really big now. It's really just let itself go, and it's woo.
Yeah, I don't know if it clears the sinuses as much as it pulls the brain cells out just to make room for all the mucus. But
Not much there to pull out
either
anymore.
way, I'll take it. Yeah.
Oh, that feels way bigger than it did.
Yeah, even on the nose, like this is almost into the orange creamsicle crush territory in a different manner, where the nose is so big and the palate is so big that it cannot be ignored.
God.
Yeah, but it's not all smoke. I mean,
No.
there's so much more going on, and it's big seafood and
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna throw a little bit of water on that one because we have enough left. I just want to see what happens.
Yeah, seafood chowder with a little bit of epoxy glue for the broth.
Oh, I love it.
Maybe a touch of tire fire just smoking away in the background, but man, do I love this one.
Oh, water sweetens the nose up a bit.
Yep.
Oh,
It almost goes into, and this is ages ago, but there was I think it was a Lecheg called smoked aged Riesling,
yes, yep.
where it's got that petrol note to it, in the same manner that Riesling gets and that Lecheg gets often. But it reminds me of that. And man, we've seen some really good independent bottlings over the years, over the last couple of years in the teens age that this one is at. And this one, you said it has a sister cask, is that correct?
It does, yep. 42.44 winter warmer from November 2018.
Oh,
I love what
good.
water did to that. That
Yeah.
really brought out the sweet side of it. And so now you've got this beautiful balance of peat and sweet, and neither overwhelms the other. And that's just, water was perfect with it.
Absolutely. Tyler says getting a hint of mezcal too now. I totally get where you're coming from there, Tyler. Just sharing my screen because I didn't do it earlier. This is Scotch Malt Whisky Society 42.77, $180 from the 21st of February 2008. And I think I'd have to take a look, but I think if you're looking for Lecheg, which this one is, which is heavily peated whiskey from the Tobermory distillery on the Isle of Mull. There seems to be a sweet spot for independent bottlings right now, where if you get something in the 12, 13, 14-year-old range, so probably around 2007, 2008, 2009, there are some really good bottlings that seem to hit every now and then, including this one.
Mhm.
Oof. What a start and what a finish. Holy cow.
Absolutely. Yeah. Big nose and palate on both, in very different manners. Will says, I have to say that being exposed to Lecheg and peated Loch Lomond releases has really shown a delightfully different take on smoke compared to the most of the Isla releases. Totally agree with you, Will. It's between that and the previous, the Ardmore that we had for number 6. It's a wake-up call for us that tend to be big fans of Isla, and I'm one of them. But Isla doesn't have to be your only destination when it comes to peated Scotch.
You know, these last two are, I mean, they're lovely peat, but there's so much more going on. It's just not a punch.
Yeah, this was as JP is essentially saying there. He says great lineup, first tasting since rejoining after several years. Tyler says you set the bar high for the next 11 outturns. I totally agree. Boy, it really sucks when you put the 7 best drams for the year out in the first month of the year.
All downhill for me.
We're just taking the first year off.
Yes.
All right, we're
And
done.
you even spoiled one of them by releasing it in small bottles in December. Like, what the heck are you guys thinking? But man, what a lineup. That was a lot of fun to go through.
I love when this happens because I was gonna say it's so random when we build outturns. I mean, it's not random. We're looking for obviously certain flavor profiles and ages, but without ever having tasted the whiskeys beforehand, you just never know. And some months are complete knockouts, and other months are like, man, not bad, pretty good, pretty bad.
Mostly we just don't have a clue.
Yeah, mostly we don't have a clue. It's great. How to run a business, right? We don't have a clue.
So I said I would give links for each of these and then completely drop the ball because I was so mesmerized by the whiskey. But the link I just shared there gives you a link to all 7 of the drams, not in order, but for the tasting. If you are looking to purchase any of these, like I said, they're all available. I would definitely recommend jumping on 1 or 2 of them if you're interested in them sooner rather than later. Even with the price, I don't think Orange Creamsicle Crush is going to stick around. But if you are looking for a chance to purchase that, I did buy 2 of the small bottles myself just because I had to have more of it. But we have the 100 milliliter bottles. Yeah,
Still a fair number of those minis left.
Yeah, I think we actually have more minis than the Outturn of the full size bottles.
Yeah.
For those that are looking for it, but man, is it good.
Yeah.
Oof. Chris is saying this is one of the best lineups ever. Any luck on selling that liver yet, Chris, or no go?
Considering the company in the room, everyone's liver is in the same shape, I figure.
That's right. It's
I'm still using my liver. But it regenerates, so I'm just gonna cut off a chunk.
well, that's still awful generous of you, depending on the price. Well, I think we'll cut off the Facebook feed and the recording from here. But thank you, Robin Kelly, for doing this with me. It's always fun, and this was one heck of a lineup. So it's been a fun tasting go through with you guys. I am doing this in person tomorrow with Cam for his last hurrah at Kensington Wine Market before he becomes our unofficial brand ambassador in Ottawa, I guess, as he moves on. But we will hopefully see him in future virtual tastings when we go from here. But thank you for those that are watching the recording later or the Facebook feed. I'm going to close everything off, and maybe we'll take a few questions if Kelly and Rob want to stick around as well.
Yeah, happy to. Absolutely.
Sounds good.